Hi, I'm Dr. Micah Hamilton, CEO and co-founder of Apeiron Corporation. And we're continuing our epigenetic performance series, short clips. Today, I'm super excited. I have one of my favorite people and good friends, Dr. Kirk Parsley. Dr. Parsley is one of our Apeiron team rockstar physicians, also master coach, and considered one of the foremost actionable sleep experts on the planet. He's a former SEAL and a former SEAL physician. And so I'm excited today to have Dr. Parsley discuss with you really amazing, simple tips that you can use to optimize your sleep to enhance your immune system. Kirk, welcome.
Thank you. Let me get up on my soapbox. So the first thing I always tell everybody is that the most important aspect of being able to get good sleep is to prioritize sleep. So you have to convince yourself that sleep is the most important thing in your life. And I'm going to make the case as to why that is. And once you're convinced of that, you won't need my help. You won't need anyone else's help. If you made sleep your number one priority, if I said I'd give you $10 million if you slept 8 hours a night for a month, I guarantee you every one of you would figure out a way to sleep 8 hours, right? We would all do it. So if it's your priority, you'll do it. So why should it be your priority? Well, I like to describe that by talking about a little physiological thing that we all know about is stress, right? Stress hormones, usually people talk about cortisol as being the stress hormone. It's one of the hormones and it's an easy one to talk about. So let's use that. Cortisol is important. It isn't bad. Stress isn't bad. Stress means that you need to pay attention to something. So cortisol is a hormone in our body that basically allows our brain to pay attention to the environment. When you're asleep, you can still smell, you can still taste, you can still see, you can still hear, you can still feel pain and light touch and heat and all of that other stuff. You're just not paying attention to it. Now, as your cortisol comes up in the morning, it comes up to a certain point where you now have enough cortisol to be awake and your brain is awake. It's full of these, what we call neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters can be wake promoting and they make you more awake. Now, you are awake in proportion to your environment. So if you're driving in a car and you nearly get in a car crash, you become super focused, right? You go into what we call fight or flight. There's maximum stress. Your life is on the line, so there's maximal stress. Your cortisol is really high. Your pupils dilate, your lungs expand, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up. You mobilize glycogen from your cells. You become stronger, better endurance, higher pain threshold. You're superhuman, right? You're essentially getting ready to fight or flee, and we call that the fight or flight response. Now, the exact opposite of fight or flight is deep sleep. If you think about fight or flight, we're superhuman, right? Well, why don't we run around like that all the time? Because there's a lot of stuff that's not happening when you're in fight or flight, right? You're not digesting your food. You're not producing sperm and ovum. You're not, did I say digesting? Your immune system's not essentially working, right? You're not fighting off parasites. You're not fighting off bacterial infections. You're not fighting off viral infections. You're not repairing damage that's been done. You aren't storing away nutrients that you're eating. None of that stuff is going on, because all that matters is the threat that's right in front of you. If you don't get out of that car crash, it doesn't matter if your immune system's working. Now, if that's fight or flight, and we know that your immune system essentially isn't working during fight or flight, when would be the exact opposite? That's deep sleep. So that's when your immune system is working at its peak. When you go into sleep, as most of you have probably heard, there's different stages of sleep. They're called all different things. An easy way to think about it is REM and non-REM. Non-REM, we're primarily trying to talk about something called deep sleep or slow wave sleep. So non-REM happens first when you go to sleep, and most of that 90 to 120 minutes will be non-REM sleep, and you'll have a little bit of REM. Over the course of the night, that reverses to where the last sleep cycle right before you wake up, that's primarily REM and a little bit of deep sleep. So what's happening in deep sleep is you're repairing, you're restoring everything. If you've heard of something called the glymphatic system in the brain, where the neuron or the structural neurons that kind of hold the shape of our brain, they actually contract by 30%, and they create these little aqueducts for your cerebral spinal fluid to be able to flow through, and it gets rid of the waste products that build up in between your neurons, and that's kind of the fuel source, right? What's outside of a cell is the fuel source. Its environment is this fuel source. So we get rid of all the waste and we bring in nutrients. That leads to a whole host of other things. And so if you exercise, most people know this, when you exercise, you actually damage your tissues, right? You damage a muscle cell. If you want to make a muscle cell stronger, you push it past its ability to do that amount of work. It then ruptures, or it at least gets damaged, and oftentimes they'll rupture. And then when you repair that muscle fiber, it will be stronger. It will be more capable of doing the amount of work that you put on. So you have to give even more stress to keep getting stronger. You have to progressively increase the weight to get stronger, but only if you're repairing. If you don't sleep, you don't get stronger. If you exercise vigorously and tear your muscles down and then don't sleep, you don't get better. You actually get weaker, right? And one of the reasons is because you're increasing the number of stress hormones. So one of the most important things during this time with the coronavirus being on everyone's mind is to put this in context, and you have to reduce your stress to some level, right? You cannot be stressed out all day and expect to get good sleep. I told you that deep sleep is the lowest level of cortisol. Fight or flight is the highest. So normal is maybe a third of the way to the highest. Well, if you're stressed all day, you might be half the way to fight or flight. You might be 3/4 of the way to fight or flight, which means when you're sleeping deeply, your cortisol is not going to go as low, and you're not going to be able to sleep as well. Now, the other important part of this is to realize that the entire point of sleeping tonight is to get me ready for tomorrow. And what my brain and body does is it estimates, based on what I did today, what do I need to be more capable of tomorrow? So it's going to prioritize repairing those things, regenerating those things that I'm using a lot to be more capable the next day. Now, we've signed this contract with the planet that we need 8 hours essentially to completely restore ourselves from what we did today and have a chance of being better tomorrow. If you only do 6 hours of sleep, tomorrow still comes. So you have to get that fuel from somewhere. And where you get that fuel from is places that you're trying to make bigger, better, and stronger. You're actually, instead of making things bigger, better, and stronger, you're conserving fuel. You're not doing that because your body's worried, your brain's worried that you could be in a state of famine, or you could be being pursued by a predator. And so you're not going to feel like sleeping as much. Your cortisol is going to be higher. That interferes with something we call the prefrontal cortex, which is the ability of our brain that allows us to rationalize, right? It allows us to make a prediction. It's a simulator. So I don't have to jump out of this window to know that I would get hurt if I landed because it's 150 feet high. Of course I would get hurt if I jump out of this window. I don't have to do that. I can simulate that in my brain. The more impaired that region of the brain is, a la 16-year-old boys, you think, oh, I don't like, I can do that. I can make that happen. I can jump out of there and land in the pool or whatever. And that's an impulsive behavior. Well, if you want to act like a, adolescent boy with your risk-taking behavior, then just don't get as much sleep, and that, you'll get the same result from that. So, having that prefrontal cortex will not only allow you to make rational decisions during the day, it'll allow you to keep the anxiety low because you can have a better sense of simulating what the environment's showing. So you can say, well, I know that this coronavirus could be a big threat in the future. However, right now I'm much more likely to die of heart attack or cancer or stroke or car crash or all sorts of other things. And so I'm going to put it in perspective. I'm going to put it in context. If it starts getting a lot worse, I'll worry about it more. But for right now, all I can do is wash my hands, not cough on people, social distance, isolate myself to the best of my ability. And that's all I can do. There's nothing else that I can do. So why worry about it? You still drive your car, even though there's a risk, but you wear your seatbelt. Hopefully you don't drink and drive. You don't text and drive. Like, you get rid of the risk. You mitigate as much of the risks as possible. But the unfortunate truth is that life is fatal and we're all going to die. That contract was signed the day you were born. You're definitely going to die. Nobody gets out of this alive. Everybody's going to die. And unfortunately, probably most of us are going to die before we feel like dying. So Just keep it in perspective. There's lots of other things that are much more likely to be a significant threat to the future that you see for yourself. So with that in mind, if the stress is getting to you, I'll give you a few ways to kind of mitigate that. So the first thing to do, if you know that stress is interfering with your sleep, the first thing to do is to get really regimented, right? Discipline leads to habits, and habits lead to behavioral changes, and behavioral changes lead to health, assuming they're the right behavioral changes. So when you start thinking about, I'm not getting enough sleep, so I want to structure my day. Well, how do I structure my day? We evolved to be on this planet to use the sun as our cue. And that has to do with light going into our eyes. I don't have time to explain all of that, but basically as light decreases in our eyes, it changes our brain chemistry and it gets us ready to go to sleep. In the wild, where people have never been exposed to electricity, that takes about 3 hours. I don't expect anyone to spend 3 hours getting ready for bed, but you can put on blue blocking glasses, you can put F-Lux on your computer, you can have programs on your phone that decrease the blue light, special light bulbs, you can dim lights. There's all sorts of things you can do, diminish how much light's going into your eyes and diminish how much activity you're doing. Don't try to work out right before you go to bed. Don't watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre right before you go to bed. Don't be working on a critical work project right up until the minute you go to bed. Give yourself an hour or so to get ready for bed, to wind down, just like you would do to a small child. You put them through a bedtime routine. So do the same thing for yourself. Set an alarm clock. When that alarm clock goes off, that's just as important as any other alarm clock that's ever happened in your day, that's ever happened in your life. And once that alarm clock goes off, the televisions go off, the lights go down, like all of the calming activity gets put into place. An hour later, you're in bed, you're laying there to go to sleep. You don't need a clock. There's no benefit of having a clock while you're asleep. If you're asleep, your brain isn't paying attention to your environment, so you can't read the clock when you're asleep. And if you're awake, you want to be asleep, so why look at the clock? It doesn't make any sense. It just leads to stress, and you start thinking about mental math. You start calculating how much sleep you've gotten, how much sleep you can get if you still get up and do this, and all of these other things. Makes no sense. So put the clock away. You can have an alarm clock, put it under a towel, put it in your bedside table, put it next to your bed, whatever it is, you don't need to look at it. If you wake up in the middle of the night, do something that relaxes you. I don't really care what that is. If you like meditation, do that. If you like visualization, progressive muscle relaxation, breath work, I don't care. You want to do some reading, do some low light reading, go ahead, do that, whatever it is. But the reading would be the last choice. That's the absolute last choice. But whatever it is that will allow you to distract yourself, de-stress, and then lay there calmly until your alarm clock goes off. If you didn't look at your clock, you have no idea what time it is, right? So if you wake up and I don't know if I can go back to sleep, but I'm going to lay here and relax and breathe. And if I do fall back asleep, I do. And if I don't, I'll wake up when my alarm clock goes off. So if your alarm clock goes off 10 minutes later, you got a full night's sleep and 10 minutes of meditation. If your alarm clock's not going to go off for 3 or 4 hours, you're almost certainly going to fall back asleep. And so that time between the alarm clock going off to get ready for bed and the alarm clock going off to get you up in the morning, nothing else happens in that other than you're getting ready for bed or you're laying in bed, relaxing or sleeping until the alarm clock goes off. And then you get up at the same time every day. You go to bed at the same time every night. That will allow your body to adjust what's called your circadian rhythm, which puts you in the most optimal physical state to be able to handle stress, to be able to process emotions, to be able to process thought, to do problem solving, to do predictions, all of the things that are stressing you out. Your brain is the most capable first thing in the morning after you've had a good rest. Everything's restored, everything's replenished. You're the most capable you're ever going to be. If you have a big laundry list of things that you worry about that keep you up all night or keep you from falling back to sleep if you wake up early, I tell people to make 2 lists. One list is a to worry list. One list is a to-do list. The to-do list is obvious. It's the things that you need to do, that you're worried about, that you need to do, that you have to do to be moving towards the future that you envision for yourself. There's a to worry list, which means you can't do anything about it, but you're still going to worry about it. So you want to make sure that you don't short yourself the ability to worry about something. You put that on a list too. And if at any time you realize that you've forgotten something on your list and that's keeping you awake, get up and put that on your list. and then lay back down and relax again. When you wake up in the morning, you will be the most capable you can possibly be. Now, eat well, exercise well, control your stress throughout the day, and you will be the most capable that you could possibly be. At the end of the day, there's nothing that you can do that's going to prevent you from being exposed to this virus over some finite period in the next year, 18 months, whatever. Everybody's going to be exposed to it. You may get it, you may not get it. The healthier your immune system is, the faster you're going to get rid of it, the less contagious you are to anybody else, the less likely you are to feel ill from it. So optimize yourself. The key to optimizing yourself is all lifestyle. It's not a bunch of magic tricks. It's not gadgets. It's not even supplementations unless it's, something that you're deficient on. So be wise, prioritize lifestyle, keep everything in context, keep everything in perspective, realize that this is just life. We're all going to die. Some of us are going to get through this. Some of us aren't going to get through this. You have no control over which one you are. The best control that you have is being the healthiest, most capable, most optimized person you could possibly be. And that requires the lifestyle changes. So hopefully that makes sense. And you'll take some advice off that. If you don't believe anything that I'm saying, I can't help you. But I encourage you to at least go online and do a little research about what are the health consequences about if you don't get enough sleep.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I always say hold sleep sacred. It's the number one thing. And from there, life looks very clear if you're rested. We're going to do a deep dive into how sleep affects the complex system and how it epigenetically translates across that system. You and Dr. Stickler are going to do that live. So look forward to that. And thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy today.